This is Volume 3 of my War Zone instructional video series on police and military tactics. This training video I'll cover disarming of firearms and long guns. The first disarming technique I will demonstrate will be against a cylinder-operated gun. This is a .38 snub-nose special. I always recommend when handling a live weapon to check it to make sure that it's unloaded. Make sure there's no shells in the chamber. When you pass it on to your training partner, they will once again check it a second time. The first situation we'll put ourselves in, first of all, is a front attack. The first technique can be applied from a low, middle, or high hostage type of situation or situation. Now, first of all, there's many factors going into disarming a weapon. The distance has to be right, the situation has to be right, the timing has to be right when you would decide to go for the weapon. All those factors are taken into account. What I'm going to concentrate on first will be just the mechanical application of the technique and the body mechanics on how to apply and how to move your body. The first thing you have to remember when disarming a technique or demonstrating a disarming technique against a weapon is clear the body from line of fire. In this situation, I'm going to be leaning to the right. At the same time, he hasn't asked me to put my hands up, so it's best to have your hands down unless they tell you to put them up. Then if they tell you to put them up only halfway, unless they tell you to raise them up. You have to do what they say, but basically you don't do any more than you have to do because it makes it a little more difficult to go for the disarming technique. So what I'm going to do here, since he hasn't asked me to put my hands up, as a weapon comes out in many situations, as soon as a weapon appears, you have to go for it at that time. You don't know if you're going to be shot or they just put it there to hold you as a hostage or it's an armed robbery type situation. Being a police officer, sometimes the weapon is put on you, you're going to be a hostage. And a lot of times in situations I've been involved in, as a weapon comes out, you have maybe 5/10 of a second to react before you're able to pull that trigger. So as soon as it appears, clear the body. My right hand's coming across, grabbing the cylinder. Since right now this is on double action, he has to pull the trigger in order for this weapon to fire. By grabbing the cylinder, he cannot fire the weapon at all, so that makes it a little easier for me. The second situation, which we'll cover a little later, is single action. Now all he has to do is just pull the trigger and the hammer goes forward. So that cuts our reaction timing down in half. All right, this first situation I'll do a couple of times fast and I'll break it down. By clearing the body, bringing the right hand across, grabbing the cylinder, coming up with the left hand under the barrel, you'll see that no part of my body is in line of fire. At the same time, twisting the weapon back towards your assailant's face. The trigger finger now is trapped inside the trigger guard and the trigger, creating a tremendous pressure, and it would break it if you can see this right here. By stepping back, using my body weight to my advantage, clearing my body, stepping back, I'm able to pull him down to the mat, putting him in a situation. As you disarm the weapon, always step back, away, and set up for firing in case you have to defend. In many situations, the person maybe has one weapon on you, but they have another weapon in another pocket, so they may come out with another weapon. So on this particular technique from the side view, you'll see me clear the body, grab the weapon. One mistake a lot of people make is they push the weapon too far to the outside. Then you have to go too far out to grab it back. So it's very important not to move any more than you have to move. The fastest techniques are short and clean. You'll see as I lean here, as I'm able to hit back with the left hand, I'm using my hip action for tremendous power and leverage. Then I'm dropping my body weight straight down on his wrist, then stepping back, pulling the weapon out, and setting up for firing. Now I'll demonstrate this at several different angles. Looking at from my rear view, as you see, as I clear my body, I don't move my feet at all. Only thing I do is just twist the body, clear the body. At the same time I'm clearing the body, the right hand has already grabbed the weapon, the cylinder. As I come back, I'm using the torque and twist from my hips, dropping down, stepping back. It's relatively simple. This angle, Step away. A little faster. And what's very dangerous when you're training with a partner is when they do have the trigger finger in the trigger guard, it's possible to break that or to injure it. So just to work on repetition, 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 it's best to take the trigger finger out, because many, many fingers have been broken or severely cut or bruised because of that. This technique will work low, middle, high. The technique is very nice moving. I also recommend practicing with the weapon in both hands. Everything changes. Everything changes from here. You'll come across with your left, then back with the right. It's the same technique, but be sure to practice both ways. This same mechanical process of taking the weapon away will work also from the side. All you have to do is align your body, move inside with the head, come across with the hand, then step out exactly the way you did before with the front view. It's the same exact technique, but it will work. 1, 2. Now you'll see 2 individual movements, but as you get used to the technique and you develop the skill through repetition, it becomes all part of one nice, smooth movement. You've got the weapon, you know where to go to, and you just recreate what you've already drilled into your subconscious. It's easier for me personally if I feel the weapon against a part of my body or head, because at least I know where it's at. At that point, I don't really have to look at it to go for it. So if I can feel it, then I know exactly where it's at. I don't have to look. And one thing that helped me enhance my techniques over 23 years in martial arts training and law enforcement training was repetition. Then also I used to do it, and still do it, with my eyes closed, just reacting on the feel of the technique. So if the eyes are closed and it's up there, then you still know where it's at. You can grab it and apply that technique. So that was very beneficial to me in perfecting my techniques. To the side, if you feel it to the side or the kidneys, this technique still applies. You'll see me move and then come back out. A little different view from here. You'll see me move the weapon a little bit and come straight back. This is a better side view from here. See how I cleared the body, passed, and then I just come up the same way and back out. Same technique can also be applied from the rear. If you know where the weapon is, first thing you should do, if you approach from the rear, if you don't feel the weapon, at least if they haven't shot you yet, you have a chance, turn and see which hand has the weapon first. Secondly, make sure that that particular hand that's in your back has the weapon in it. So same thing can apply here. By moving inside, you see me parry the gun hand away, and I'm able to cross grab here, then come straight up and down. So as I move inside, it's not advisable to move this way because you're moving the weapon towards the second hand, and they can always come back up and grab it with the left hand. So if I turn to the right and he has the right hand, the gun in the right hand, I'm moving it towards his other hand. It makes it more difficult, and it's also very dangerous. So whenever possible, always move to the inside. Use your body, use your footwork, but make it as short and clean as possible. From the rear to the middle. Same technique can apply to the head from behind. Once again, the first rule, clear the body. And when talking about reaction timing, in field testing the techniques that I'm showing you here today, with many martial artists and many law enforcement personnel, action is faster than reaction in all types of sports. The reaction timing it takes for your assailant to know that you've moved and going for the weapon is generally, at least, at the very fastest, 0.5 of a second. Once you master your techniques, you're going to be able to take the weapon away, take the weapon away before they can really focus in on that you've already moved. And you should polish the techniques to get those down under 0.5 of a second. Most techniques take about 3 to 0.5 of a second. And that's with well-trained professional martial artists and law enforcement officers. Somebody just has a gun on you on the street, their reaction timing may be much less than that. In other words, they may not react 0.8 to 1 second or even more. Another thing I take into effect, anybody that has a gun on you, they have that what we call fire superiority. They don't think that you're going to react. So any action you do is going to be a total surprise to them initially. And you're going to have that time. And you have to have confidence in your training enough to know you've got time to go for that gun. The final thing to take into effect that many law enforcement officers have had that situation happen to them is your life's on the line. So if you don't have professional training, you have no chance. If you don't know these techniques, you have very little chance to survive. These techniques have, in many, many, many cases throughout the United States, with my teachings and the other instructors teaching who are teaching these techniques, have saved many, many law enforcement officers' lives. Once again, high to the inside, step in, grab, pull back out. So a brief review on this particular grab. Clear the body, reaching across with the right hand, grabbing the cylinder, try to pull. Twisting back to the right, torquing down, and set for firing. Using the same type of gun, we'll pull the hammer back. Now, in dry firing, your reaction timing's cut down in half. There are many techniques I use for that from the same position. I'm going to get a close-up of the gun first. You're going to come across with this. One way that I do it is always have the little finger where it's grabbing exactly where the hammer is, whether it's down or it's back. My little finger, I can sacrifice that to get it in between the trigger and the firing pin. So as he pulls it, that firing pin goes into the outside of my little finger. In a real situation, that actually happened to me once, and I was able to apply the technique very well. So we're going to work on that first. What you have to do is polish your technique so quick that when you move, now Todd knows that I'm standing here doing this technique, but when he sees me move, he should try to then fire. Your move has to be not telegraphed, it has to be spontaneous, it has to be quick. So when he sees me move, then he can fire the weapon. I've caught it either with my little finger or my fourth finger. It really doesn't matter. Preferably the little finger, but sometimes with a smaller weapon like this snub nose, my whole hand almost covers it. Also, the smaller the weapon, the harder it is to take away. So that's the reason I chose the smaller weapons today, because this is the most difficult to take away. So, you got to move. Even if it goes off, you've cleared your body from line of fire, you have grabbed the cylinder, they can't pull it a second time. So that's what we're working on here. Trap, and use the same technique. You'll experience the firing pin going into your hand a little bit, but remember, these are life-saving techniques. Last chance. It's your only chance sometimes for that. Same way. So you can practice all these techniques from the different angles. You've got to get your hand in between the trigger and the firing pin on the inside. In this technique, I'm going to use a semi-automatic weapon. This is a Colt 380, slide operated. Once again, always check the weapon to make sure that it's unloaded, that the clip is out. You can see that the clip is out. Always aim it away and dry fire at least one time. Using this type of weapon, since it's slide operated, grabbing the way I did on the last technique is okay as long as you're able to get the weapon away before it fires. But if it's on single action or it's back, then it cuts down, once again, the reaction timing. Grabbing the weapon up here, if it does fire, the slide is going to eject back. So you have some type of complication there. There are some techniques that I use that I recommend for this that I like very well. The first one being a technique where I come in behind his hand and come back towards attacking the trigger finger or trapping the trigger finger. You can see there's very little room for me to operate here, but if the hands are up or hands down, as I clear the body, you'll see my hand coming in from behind back towards me, with my thumb sliding down the weapon, trapping the trigger finger. Now my thumb has more leverage and pressure than does his index finger. So you can test that all day long with different types of people. They're not going to be able to pull the trigger if you're able to trap right there. Now, you don't have much time, but when you move in from behind, clear the body. Once again, just in case, you have the trap of the trigger finger pushing back against the trigger guard. Then using the same disarming technique and the same body movement and footwork, step back and to the side, trapping the person to the ground. Once again, in mastering this, it's a quick movement, and the hand comes from the opponent back towards you, trapping the trigger finger against the trigger guard, and then using the same movement. Once again, when you're using the techniques against a semi-automatic or single-action type of revolver, it's very important today I'm kind of using a bigger circular type of movement, but once you master the techniques, as you make them quicker, and make the circle smaller, then your techniques are applied more rapidly and also with more torque and power. So as you start out learning initially the techniques, you may overreact or have excessive movement, as I call it. Then as you perfect it, you'll cut down the amount of movement and apply it into the technique. Once again, explaining this particular technique against a semi-automatic or a single action, coming in from behind, back toward, always clearing the body, and then coming down. From this angle, clear and trap, step and take down. You'll notice that if the weapon was to discharge, hopefully it would discharge towards your assailant as opposed to yourself or some innocent bystander. Time. Yep. Step back and clear for firing. The next technique we're going to work against will be using some footwork. If you master the techniques on the hand-to-hand combat, the footwork, the Tai Sabaki, from the Aikido movements, moving your feet, once you have control of the weapon and have cleared your body, adds a tremendous amount of torque. In this particular situation, I'm going to come in behind the wrist, move it to the side, creating pressure. I'm pulling also the index finger or his trigger finger away so he doesn't have pressure to pull. I step through and under, torque. Always making sure that the barrel of the weapon is pointed away from you. There. So since it's in his right hand, I'm going to break his balance, step up, through, roll, and step back. Once again. The second technique I'm going to use using the footwork will be to the inside, or to his right side, or strong side. Grabbing the weapon, let's go ahead and put the trigger finger in. You'll see very slowly what this does. As I torque it back towards him, and I break his balance down, I'm able to go under the wrist and back up. At that point, you would step through, almost instantly breaking the trigger finger. So for training purposes, for the throw, I'm going to have Todd keep his trigger finger to the outside for safety. So as you twist and go under, you're ready for the throw. You'll see that the barrel is pointed away from me at all times and towards him. From that point, you'll then grasp the weapon away. Up. You'll see still the position of the weapon, which is ready to be pulled out of the hand. One more time. Sit back for firing. Another technique off of that works very well. Trigger finger in, please. As soon as you come down here, come up, flow to the outside with your footwork, and twist. Now, if you have a longer barrel weapon, you can use the barrel against the wrist to create leverage on the wrist and forearm. Then you're set up for firing at this particular position. So as you twist, move to the outside and come down. You can grab the weapon, put it in the left hand. Up, outside, and down. Quicker. Trigger finger in slow. Over. Okay, quick review on the first technique. With a single action or slide operated, it really doesn't make any difference. Coming in, we've got to stop the trigger finger from squeezing the trigger. You have to do that by coming not straight across. It's a combination of when you move your body, you're coming at this angle. Always pulling the weapon to the side as you come back. The second technique, breaking the balance, stepping through, twisting. The third technique was twisting, stepping under, and throwing. The last technique was twisting, stepping to the side, and down. The next two techniques I'm going to instruct will be against an assailant who has stuck the gun either into your stomach and has you up against a wall or is shoving you back. It involves a quick two-way action. Since the gun is in the lower abdominals here, I'm going to hit up with the left hand and also clear the weapon towards the ground as not to cross my body at any angle. Done simultaneously, you're able to hit up on the wrist, dislodge the weapon by pushing down and twisting to the outside. Immediately you insert it into the free hand and clear the opponent off to the side so you can fire if necessary. I'll do it a few times fast and I'll break it back down slow. But once it's shoved in, once again I explained earlier, you don't have to look at the weapon primarily if you can feel where it is. It's a matter of just two-way action. Hitting up on the wrist, which is the ulnar nerve down here, and hitting down and twisting and clearing. Once again, up, down, twist, insert, and clear away. You can apply a kick there if necessary or whatever once you've disarmed the weapon. If your back is against the wall, you can't move backwards. Your footwork has to be down and maybe off to the side. A few more times. Like this. If they're shoving you back, you have to decide when to grab the gun, insert it, and twist. Earlier I discussed about closing your eyes, just reacting and demonstrating your technique according to the feel as opposed to what you see. And I find that's the best way here because in some situations they may have you by the neck and you're not able to look down. It's still the same technique, reacting on feel and your movement to the side. Second technique will be up to the head. It's pretty much the same movement except we reverse the two-way action. Since the gun is high, I definitely don't want to bring the gun down across my body to disarm it. I'm going to, first of all, come down on top of the wrist and come up with the right hand to grab the weapon and bring it down. I still have control of him, but you can set back for firing. So it's a quick movement, no excessive movement. Over, up, twist, pull back, and set. Quickly. You also will notice as I make my initial movement with my hands that I have moved my head a little bit out of the line of fire, just in case. And I also drop down with my footwork to use for leverage to move back. So against the head, whether your back's against the wall or they're just shoving you back, it's a quick movement, straight down vertically, as opposed to the horizontal movement. The gun is still being disarmed in the same manner. For safety purposes, once again, I had my assistant keep his trigger finger out of the trigger guard. I'll do it a little slower with the trigger finger in the trigger guard. You'll see that that would take him down to the ground, the pressure of the index finger trapped. Then also you can come in to other type of movements. Once again, slow, down, pull. You can always come into this movement and set up. It's a little quicker with your trigger finger out on that one. Down, and lock in. The next technique I will instruct will be a gun to the lower back area, pressed in against. If you can feel it, you know where it is. Once again, contrary to what I discussed earlier, I'm turning to the inside or to the outside moving. But quickly, as I pull down with this hand, I'm able to bend the wrist, bringing the gun up towards him. Reaching across my left hand, coming across, disarming, pulling it out of the hand, striking the vagus nerve or mastoid area, set back for firing. So I'm going to spin to the outside. You'll see that my forearm has moved the weapon away from my body. I've cleared the weapon from my body. Quickly come down, come up, strike, and move back. So I'm clearing, coming down, hit, and move back. Done quickly. 1, 2, and 3. The next situation I'm putting myself in is on my back, pretty much in a hostage situation or maybe some type of assassination situation. Whereas I'm lying straight down, my assailant is standing straight over me. If he's standing over with both legs, generally the same techniques will apply regardless of what angle you're in. Reaching across, moving the weapon away from my head, my body, trapping the same manner as we did earlier, small circle torque back towards my assailant, but also bringing my hands in towards my center of gravity, where my energy is here, breaking his balance. So the first initial move will be quickly down, using your body. To throw or get him off, I'll circle with the weapon underneath here, bringing the weapon on top. I'll then create pressure over my backside. I'll then spin up, and I'm able to set for firing in this manner. Once again, a quick movement. Clear the body, straight back, breaking the balance. Now I'm going to the outside or counterclockwise with the weapon underneath, twisting his wrist. You'll see his wrist has been in this manner. Now I'm creating pressure, creating my energy, throwing him over the head. I'll then spin out, roll up, and set for firing. Once more, just a little faster. Full combat speed. 1, 2, and 3. The second situation that we're in from the ground position will be standing to the backside. Once again, grabbing the weapon in the same manner, we're going to grab and twist back towards my assailant, straight up. As I create torque, I'm able to throw him over and then roll out and set up for firing. You'll notice I rolled away from my assailant as opposed to toward him. So it's a quick reaction twist, pull, set up for firing. Again. And up. The next two self-defense moves will be against a long gun. I have a sawed-off shotgun, 18 inches here. Once again, as in all weapons, make sure that there's no shell in the chamber. Make sure it's clear. Pass it to your assistant. They will recheck it just for safety precautions, and then we'll begin the exercise. In this particular situation, since this is a shorter barrel shotgun, once again, the bigger the gun or the longer the weapon, the easier it is to take away. Whether the gun's pressed in or not, first thing you have to do, as in all gun self-defense movements, is clear the body or move the weapon away. Since we have a larger mass to grab here, I'm going to have you moving to the side, at the same time moving the weapon up towards him. That will expose the stock. You're able to grab in or reach in and grab with your right hand and pull it towards you, twisting it away from them, and you're able to set up. It's a very simple technique. The timing is essential. 1, 2, 3. As you start developing the technique, it becomes a little quicker. As you go 1, you're already reaching in for 2. Okay? Hold it in tight. 1. Just reach in and get it. If it fires up into the air. As in many cases, if you wish, you can always use some other distracting type of techniques. And one reason we don't do that is because if I was to kick him in the groin possibly at this time, he may contract all these muscles, he may squeeze off around. Whereas if you just go for the weapon, a lot of times you're able to get it away before they can fire. If you grab the weapon and kick, possibly their reaction would be to tense up and fire the weapon. So that's one thing we're taking into consideration. But if you're grabbing the weapon and pretty much he still has a hold of the weapon and you're struggling, then that's when you could go into your strikes to the groin or to the face area. Once again, up and in. If it's pressed against you, you're going to have to clear the body, move it up. You see how I lean? Then I'm able to shoot in and spin. I like to see a little bit of body movement here. So I'm moving to the right initially, pressing up with the left. As I reach in, I'm going to spin back towards my left a little bit, using the footwork. That's what makes it work. At a different angle. In here, with your hand, come right across the hand. You're able to hit, get a little bit of a hit and twist to retorque it. One more time. All right, the second technique we'll do against the long gun will be moving towards my left. Moving the weapon off to the right with the right hand. I'm going to reach across with the left. I'm going to pull back and using this as a weapon, striking in for my opponent's neck. If the barrel is longer, you have more leverage with the strike. Move, hit. And you're able to slide it right out. It's really up to your preferences. When you practice these techniques, and I show several different ways, you have to develop the ones that you like and perfect, that you would use in that particular situation. Straight here. Using that, you're going to need just a little bit of footwork to hit. Okay? A little quicker, a little smaller circle. Here, here. Okay? And what's more? Here. This concludes my War Zone instructional video on disarming techniques for police and military tactics. If I can be a father assistant, don't hesitate to write or call.
To cope with frustration, but with the help of